to come and speak with everyone today. And also to the WiM-Africa team, because I know there's many, many people behind the scenes for all their efforts to make this happen. So when Comfort first asked me to speak, I really don't know much about artisanal mining. It hasn't really touched, my experience, and I didn't kind of feel like I could speak about it, but we did discuss some points, so I'll jump into that, because I think sometimes we have to think about the systems we're working in, and Lynn sort of alluded to that. Sometimes people have an idea, but we just shift problems elsewhere, and maybe we don't get the impact that we think. So I often look at sort of the mining and minerals industry as really a solution to climate change. So, and I also have biases. I see this from a Western lens. So I want to just sort of manage your expectations on that. So I want to make sure that I can advance my slides. So I'm actually working right now with the Canadian Critical Minerals and Materials Alliance. And we're just a somewhat formal network of small to medium-sized enterprises here in Canada who are actually minerals producers, sort of in the ecosystem of that. But I'm mainly going to be speaking from my own perspective today. These are just some of our members. So I come from this as looking at it like from a governance lens. And so I think there, and I may have, proposed more questions than answers today. And I'm thinking maybe a follow-up panel discussion might, Q&A might work well for if you're looking at a next event. But our boards of directors actually, of the companies that are purchasing from artisanal miners, competent? And do those boards of directors, they're really accountable for corporate behavior? And is there diversity of thought around that boardroom table to how do I say it? And do the directors have competency in sustainability, especially on the social side? Because artisanal mining is such like it impacts people. And what is the corporate purpose and the values of strategy, of the companies that these products are being, or the products of mining are being sold to? And how does the board oversee corporate behavior? Is the corporation creating value for the region and thinking longer term? Or is the company extracting value and thinking shorter term? And does the board truly see that their business or the project that they're developing as a social development tool, or the potential to be a social development tool? Because, what's good for people and planet is good for long-term profit. So some of the gray areas that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit was, what is the definition of a child? And I think sometimes we take our biases and my Western lens, no consumer wants to know that there's child labor in their cell phone. But is a 13 or 14-year-old male who has twins on the way, or newborn twins, really a child? And so I think sometimes we need to understand what we're speaking about and what our definitions are for what a child is. And I think one of the things that we need to think about, really looking at ourselves, we can only change ourselves, is, are the materials that artisanal miners mine really needed by humanity? So is cobalt the same thing as gold? And is the demand driven by greed or by geopolitical interest? Or is it demanded for energy transition materials that, help us with our energy transition for climate action? So I think not everything that is mined is equal in my mind anyways. And there's a lot of this, the markets are sort of changing, where we used to just be able to mine something and push it into the marketplace. But ever more increasingly, it's more about customers' demand pulling, and they want to understand in that supply chain where all those materials came from, including the technical specifications for that material, that it works in their batteries, or but they want to have more environmental and social performance criteria that those materials need to meet. So, and ultimately, it's really consumers. And I think Diviso spoke to that. Consumers create this demand for goods and services, right? And increasingly, consumers and investors are more and more interested on how companies make their money versus how much those companies make. And again, what's good for people and planet is good for long-term profit. And so consumers have tremendous power to vote with their money and the investments. And I think we're often looking at people to say, well, you need to change, or you need to change, or we need more regulation. But I think sometimes we need to look at our own behavior to make that societal change. This is a huge sociological change that we're looking at, in terms of addressing climate change and climate action. Oh, sorry about that. Did I lose you guys? Sorry about that. Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, you're audible, Marilyn.
But my slides, are they advancing?
It's not flipping to the next slide. It's just right at the beginning.
Yeah, just let me. Yeah, but it was it advancing prior?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened, but I will. Just give me 2 seconds to do the. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm not sure what has happened. I'm hearing a bit of feedback in my microphones as well. So let me just go to Zoom. And I'm not sure. Can someone stop me sharing, please, so I can oh, sorry. I can do it there. How's that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start sharing again. Just maybe there's a little glitch.
Okay, while Marilyn is fixing that, the representative from WiM-Africa, please drop your email for me. You can send your email to me now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna continue on because my slides weren't that much.
Yeah.
So in terms of consumers, an economy totally based solely on consumerism, which as much as the North American continent, is not sustainable. And furthermore, economies, based on never-ending growth are not sustainable. And so these are sort of some of the things that I ask myself. The other thing that I needed to, sort of say is, I find that, with social media and a lot of, we have a chance, like I'm connecting with people in Africa, many countries in Africa today. And I find that we have a lot of people that are talking and fewer listening with social media. And people, I think we need to start thinking, who has earned the right to speak and be heard in these complex times that we're living in? And as a society, do we reward confidence over competence? And often, many of the challenges that our humanity is facing right now are science-based, issues that need to be solved. And yet, I'm not sure if the science literate folks are actually having their voices heard. So I'm just going to throw that out there. And so, some things that I think, because we are working in a system, I have some resources that I'd be happy to pop in the chat after my they were on one of my slides. But I think we have to learn really about the problem and really define it before jumping in to try and solve that. And this is, again, sort of relates to what Lynn was saying. There's a story about the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation where they did the Get the Net program, and they had a bunch of schools in North America, and if they raised money, they would match it, and they wanted to solve malaria in Africa, and it was the white savior, everyone else has to help Africa. Africa can't help itself. It was a terrible stereotype about the country there. And they ended up buying all these mosquito nets from Asia, and when you get a mosquito net for free, why would you ever buy one? So that whole effort that they pushed forward put every mosquito net manufacturer out of business in Africa. And malaria.
Et tout cet effort qu'ils ont mis dans ces problèmes n'a pas vraiment fonctionné et ça a été un gros mensonge.
Before jumping in to try and solve it. So I wanted to leave that with you. And I think sometimes to protect children, we actually need to shift the behavior of the adults. Okay, and I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilyn. That's a lot. I'm glad that you made it. We have learned quite a lot from your presentation, but I'll allow Madam Toko Budaza to do a review on that. Madam Toko, over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you, Marilyn, for your insightful presentation and your exploration of shifts in corporate governments and systems, and your thinking has provided us with a powerful framework for understanding the complexities, the responsibilities that come with advancing artisanal mining practices, As you've so eloquently outlined, the need for competent corporate governance cannot be overstated. The questions you've raised, particularly around the definition of the child and the true necessity of mined resources, challenge us to rethink our approaches and responsibilities as stakeholders in the mining industry. And your focus on systems thinking is especially pertinent as it reminds us that sustainable solutions require us to fully define and understand the problems we face before attempting to address them. This was very important for me. This perspective aligns perfectly with Women in Mining Africa's mission to foster responsible mining practices by engaging all voices, especially those that are often overlooked, the vulnerable, such as the local communities that you are talking about, the female miners that we've been talking about here, and also paying attention to the voices of the children from the pits across Africa, which it's one of our focuses, Women in Mining Africa. And in light of your presentation, it is clear that a holistic approach, incorporating diverse perspective, robust government is essential if we are to drive a positive social outcome in the mining sector. So I encourage everyone to reflect on these critical issues as we move forward in our discussion after today, and to consider how we can apply these principles in our own roles and organizations as miners, regulators, NGOs, and community representatives that are in the room today. Thank you again, Marilyn, for setting the stage for what promises to be a compelling and impactful discussion that will continue after today. Permit me quickly to state further that systems thinking is important, as you have, Marilyn, touched on this. And this approach is crucial for advancing responsible artisanal mining practices, including the removing of children from mines, particularly in the African context where we have children at hazardous mine sourcing minerals, including gemstones, gold, you name it, by middlemen, and finally supplying the global market. So systems thinking offers a holistic approach that encourages us to view the children challenges within the mining sector not in isolation, but in interconnected parts of a larger system. And for African leaders, because we have to touch on them, it is this perspective is very essential in navigating the complexities of mining governance, community engagement, sustainable development, and by adopting systems thinking approach, African leaders can better anticipate the ripple effects of their policies, decisions, and the lack of decisions, ensuring that the benefits of mining are equitably distributed and that the voices of the stakeholders, especially those marginalized, I cannot emphasize this point more, are heard and respected while dealing with investors coming into Africa to source critical materials for development. And in my opinion, Marilyn, the most responsible approach in the sector is to ensure mineral processing in country and nothing else. And as we push forward in advancing responsible mining practices, African leaders must embrace this mindset, recognizing that long-term sustainability requires deep understanding of the intricate relationships within the mining ecosystem. By doing so, our leaders can lead the continent toward a future where mining contributes positively to social, economic, and environment outcomes, and aligning it with the broader goals of sustainable development goals. And incorporating systems thinking into governance is not just about solving today's problems, but about creating resilient systems that can adapt, thrive, and face in the face of future challenges that we anticipate. And this will be a critical step in ensuring that Africa's vast mineral resources are harnessed in a way that benefits all, especially the most vulnerable populations. So I finally want to thank Dr. Comfort, our Executive Director at Women in Mining Africa, for pushing for this initiative. So thank you, Marilyn, and thank you to everyone as we think about systems thinking. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that summary.
Madam Chikobudaza and Marilyn, thank you so much. You've done quite a lot of talks around there. That's really great.
And reach out anytime.
Yeah.
Reach out anytime.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. It's highly appreciated. And quickly, let me appreciate all the organizations that have sent in delegates to make a presentation, including the CM2A that sent Madam Spink to us, Living Sources, Rich Flood, Impact, Arma. Thank you, David Zo. We still have 3 more presenters to go, but I just want to do a quick thanks. And the Web Nigeria, and then I am ESAP. Thank you, MMC. Thank you very much. So moving forward now, if you can show the next slide, please. We are seeking for leaders at WiM-Africa, people that can champion our voices all over the continent and even outside of the continent. Please, if you're interested, you can go to WiM-Africa.org/lead, WiM-Africa.org/lead. That will be dropped in the chat box. Next slide, please. Madam Priscilla Achakwa is now going to speak to us from her perspective. She's streaming in from Nigeria. Madam Achakwa, yes, we see you now. Thank you. It's now your time.
Thank you very much, Comfort.